Against the well-known belief, and prior to the advent of Christianity, the majority of ancient Jews, including those who wrote or translated the Hebrew Bible, the majority of ancient non-canonical Jewish authors, and Jews in general, did not believe in the myth that demons are or were fallen angels. They reject the idea that Satan, a fallen angel who rebelled against God together with other angels and became his henchman before changing from being angels to demons, was cast out of heaven and banished. The mythology also says that demons changed over time to become evil beings or filthy spirits. Additionally, while the myth is not entirely found in the New Testament, there are traces of it throughout. Contrary to common opinion, most ancient Jews, including those who wrote or translated the Hebrew Bible, most ancient non-canonical Jewish authors, and Jews in general, did not hold the idea that demons are or were fallen angels. They deny the notion that Satan, a fallen angel who conspired with other angels to rebel against God and turn from being angels to demons, was banished from heaven and expelled. The mythology also claims that demons evolved into malevolent entities or dirty spirits over time. There are also hints of the myth scattered throughout the New Testament, even though it is not totally present there. These gods may appear as sculptures and representations made in the likeness of these fallen angels or as the people who embodied them when they became conceited about their own strength and ability. "You must only worship me," says Exodus 20 verses 3-4, "and no other gods. It is forbidden for you to make your own idols in the image of anything that can be found in the heavens above, on the earth below, or in the waters below." Augustine of Hippo saw the history of Rome and its false gods as the history of the demons themselves, despite the fact that the most notable works of demons are not specific miracles but rather the religious institutions of the earthly city. A symbolic order that is hostile to Christ's heavenly ministers and appears as a group that opposes the body of Christ results from the devil's estrangement from God. The contradictory reference of the work of angels and demons are the opposing sacraments that make up the opposing historical bodies, the body of Christ, which Augustine of Hippo linked with the Church in his theology of totus Christus, and the body of the devil, whose model Augustine saw in pagan Rome. Augustine models his understanding of the distorted, demonic sacraments that support the earthly metropolis after his study of Hermetic God-making. In accordance with this paradigm, when human myths and objects are given divine rank and cult, they display a demonic sacramental regime, which demons both accept as worship and confirm through wonders. The main origins for the concept of fallen angels are the books of Enoch, Jubilees, and Giants of Qumran, as well as potentially Genesis 6 verses 1-4. These writings were produced during the Second Temple era, between 530 BC and 70 AD. The phrase, watchers, holy ones, which first appears in Daniel 4, is used 3 times, twice in the singular and once in the plural. The plural form of the term watchers, in ancient Greek, egregoroi, literally means wakeful. According to a number of academics, it is quite likely that Genesis 6 verses 1-4 did not exist when the Jewish belief in fallen angels did, even in writing form. After falling in love with human women, these watchers died in the Book of Enoch. When they interacted with people, they began guiding people astray and getting them to worship and commit themselves to other deities. Images of human and animal couples, like as Pan and the centaurs, are prevalent in written and visual history today. Although it is usually acknowledged that many myths have some basis in historical reality, it is generally believed that these were myths, suggesting that they may have once been true. The fact that Pan was one of the primary deities worshipped and venerated at the aforementioned gates of hell is noteworthy in that regard. But in the past, animals were utilized for much more than just a symbol of power or wisdom. It was thought that various animals represented particular divine characteristics or beings. Of course, some of the ancient deities were portrayed as entirely human or as a part of nature, but many others in both artistic and historical references merged human and animal characteristics into one person. Horus, who is a hawk or falcon, is an example of an animal that is associated with an Egyptian deity. Crocodiles are symbolized by Sobek, jackals by Anubis, ibises by Thoth, ant-eating creatures by Seth, cows by Hathor, rams by Khnum, and cobras by Renenet. While a pep, a huge snake or dragon. Those who portrayed or behaved as the deity wore or represented the linked animal's head. For instance, the head of Horus, the son of Osiris and Isis, is commonly shown as a falcon or hawk. It was believed that Horus was the ancestor of the Egyptian pharaohs. The scriptures of Jasher and Enoch claim that the Watchers used genetic engineering to create various animal and human hybrids as well as to impregnate their captive women and give birth to the Nephilim. In those days, the sons of men took from the domestic livestock, the wild animals, and the birds of the air and taught mingling creatures of various kinds in order to annoy the Lord, Jasher 4 verse 18. This was also mentioned by the Egyptian historian Manetho. And the gods were said to have created creatures with 2 wings, as well as those with 4 wings and 2 faces, 1 body, and 2 heads, including both sexes in one individual. Some had horns on their heads and thighs like those of goats, while others had men in the front and horses in the back. 4-legged dogs with tails like fish, bulls with human heads, and numerous dragon-like monsters were also said to have existed. Replicas of these creatures were kept in the Temple of Bellows and arranged next to one another. God would view the mingling of species and genders as a dreadful perversion of nature if the sons of God actually carried it out. We don't know how the sons of God would have done this, but as spirit beings they probably had a lot more understanding of biology and other scientific topics than we do right now. It is important to note that their objective was to subjugate and eradicate humanity rather than to help or save us. This doesn't mean that all the human-animal hybrids were common in the past. It's likely that only a small number of these actually existed at first, and the others are the product of later imagination and projection. Additionally, it appears likely that none of them made it through the flood because they would all have been destroyed and gone. However, these would be remembered and transmitted to next generations, who would then portray their gods as the aforementioned creatures and natural phenomena. For instance, the Bible describes how the Israelites made their way to Mount Sinai, where Moses was given the 10 Commandments, by passing through the Sin wilderness. He was up the mountain for 40 days, and the people grew impatient waiting for him. In response to the people's worries, Aaron, the top priest, created a golden calf for them to worship. Originally a site of moon deity worship, the Kaaba stone now serves as the focal point of the Muslim Hajj. It might sound strange to say, but the god of that area in Midian, modern-day Saudi Arabia, was Sin, the moon god. The moon god Sin, Baal, and other Canaanite, Egyptian, and Mesopotamian deities were represented as bulls with long horns. Instead of waiting for Moses and remaining obedient to Yahweh, the Israelites adopted the hue of their surroundings and engaged in worship rituals similar to those of the Egyptians and the peoples around them. After eating and drinking, the Israelites got up to play because in ancient days, the bull symbolized strength, fertility, and sexuality. God condemned them for their associations with one or more of the demons the idol represented. They were identifying with and succumbing to the demons that it represented because they were worshipping an idol instead of the true God. According to the story in the Book of Enoch, the sons of God also supposedly helped disseminate false religious ideas, such as astrology, divination, magic, and sorcery. Shemihaza taught magic and root cutting. To prevent the loss of magic, spells, and skills, Hermione taught sorcery. Barakel instructed us on the meanings of the lightning flashes. Kokabel provided instruction on the astrological signs. Zikkel instructed the group on the shooting stars signs. Artakov had taught them the signs of the earth. Shamsiel instructed people in the solar signs. According to 1 Enoch chapter 8 verse 3, Sariel taught people about moon signs. Although we don't know how long the sons of God lived on earth or the intricacies of how humanity's journey into depravity played out, there is a basic indication of the time period. According to the Book of Enoch, the eruption of the sons of God took place at some point during the reign of Jared, the father of Enoch. If we assume that this happened at the time of Enoch's birth, there was plenty of time for the Nephilim to multiply and for their effect to be noticed, since the flood happened 1034 years later. Enoch's son was named Methuselah, and he was born when he was 65 years old. Methuselah lived for 969 years until dying soon before the flood. Thank you for watching.